What's up, guys? In today's video I'm gonna talk a little bit about inversion. That tends to happen in Swedish very frequently, but isn't all that common in English. Unless you're Yoda, of course.
I've become more powerful than any Jedi. Even you.
Much to learn, you still have.
This is something that I feel is important to talk about because I have many students who are struggling with this. So I thought that I would make this video as a guide to all of those students who are kind of struggling with inversion in Swedish. I think I have some advice that will help you so that you can recognize when there is a change of word order, so you don't have to keep doing the same mistake. All right. So in general, inversion is defined as the act of changing the position or order of something to its opposite, or of turning something into a position in which the top of it is where the bottom of it normally is. So, is the concept of inversion clear to you yet? No? Alright, so let's get a little deeper into this. So, inversion is something that is quite typical in the Germanic languages, but it is not very common in English. You do have some cases where it occurs, such as in statements or negative expressions used with adverbials and such, where you can see the verb ending up in the second position, but it is very rare, and you can have it in sentences such as this. Hardly had I got into bed when the telephone rang. Never had she seen such a beautiful sight before. Seldom do we see such an amazing display of dance. Rarely will you hear such beautiful music. So like I mentioned before, Swedish is a V2 language, meaning that the verb typically ends up in the second position in a clause. Regardless if there's an adverbial in the beginning or not, which is why this is quite tricky for native English speakers, because in English this doesn't happen. So let's just take a quick look at the Swedish syntax. So, Swedish belongs to a group of languages usually described as V2 languages. In V2 languages, subject-verb inversion is obligatory in topicalized declarative main clauses whenever an adverbial or object occurs in sentence initial position. The verb second constraint prescribes that the inflected verb comes in the second position. So a sentence like yesterday he came would be igår kom han. So this can be quite confusing for native English speakers. And you can change this to basically any adverbial you want. Usually it will be something referring to room, like place, or time. So just as you could say, yesterday he came, igår kom han. You could say, a week ago I traveled to China. För en vecka sedan reste jag till Kina. 2 minutes ago my dog farted. För 2 minuter sedan fes min hund. So far so good. Let's just quickly look at some of the similarities before we go into the inversion again. So what happens in a typical sentence in a declarative clause that is a statement? What happens in Swedish and English, and what are the similarities? So let's start with that. So in declarative clauses in Swedish and English, the word order is basically the same, meaning we would have a subject, a verb, and an object in both languages. So in the first example here, which is English, he ate the banana. A subject is followed by a verb, which is followed by an object. In Swedish, you would have han åt bananen. So as you can see, they are exactly the same, They have a subject, a verb, and an object in both languages. When it comes to adverbials, you can actually replace the object with an adverbial in both languages, and the same thing would occur in both of them. So in the first one, English, the dog farted in the room, you have a subject, verb, and an adverbial referring to a location. And that sentence in Swedish would be hunden fes i rummet. So as you can see, the same thing happens in both Swedish and English, even when you replace the object with an adverbial. However, everything changes when we get an adverbial in the first position in Swedish, as we would then have the verb ending up in a different position than we would in English. So let's look a little bit further into this, and it's important to note that this can happen with basically any adverbial in Swedish, but most commonly it would be referring to time or location, and it could be just a single word like yesterday, or it could be a complete adverbial phrase such as 5 minutes ago my dog farted. 5 minuter sedan så fes min hund. So remember that distinction, and that it can be single words and also longer phrases. Some words that you can look for when we are talking about adverbials of time are the Swedish words of nu, förut, igår, sedan, förra veckan, förra året, hela tiden, varje dag, varje vecka, vanligtvis. There are more than this, but these are some examples of time adverbials that will give you a different position of the verb between English and Swedish. So, nu gör jag en YouTube-video. Now I am creating a YouTube video. Förut brukade jag spela fotboll. Earlier I used to play soccer. Igår åt jag pizza. Yesterday I ate pizza. Sedan kom en flicka in i rummet. Then a woman entered the room. Förra veckan hade jag huvudvärk. Last week I had a headache. Förra året åkte jag till Kanada. Last year I went to Canada. Hela tiden spelar jag tv-spel. All the time I'm playing video games. Varje dag äter jag kyckling. Every day I eat chicken. Varje vecka går jag till skolan. Every week I go to school. Och vanligtvis går jag upp klockan 10 på morgonen. Usually I get up 10 in the morning. But let's make it a little bit clearer and look at some specific examples. Here are some more examples just to make it a little bit more clear. So, as you have seen, I marked the verbs in red so you can see the differences between Swedish and English. So, nu spelar jag tv-spel would be now I am playing video games. Förut åt jag godis. Earlier I ate candy. Igår åt jag en häst. Yesterday I ate a horse. Sedan kom en flicka. Then a woman came. Förra veckan dog jag. Last week I died. And some more examples. Förra året gifte jag mig. Last year I got married. Varje dag tränar jag. Every day I work out. Varje vecka dricker jag öl. Every week I drink beer. Vanligtvis spelar jag fotboll. Usually I play soccer. So, as you might have figured out now, Swedish is a V2 language, and the verb consistently ends up in the second position after an adverbial or an adverbial phrase, or if you have an object taking up the first position in a sentence. So this is tricky and you need to practice on this, but you can recognize and think about two things, and that is think about location and think about time. So I hope it's a little bit clearer now. I have mostly talked about adverbials of time, either single word or longer phrases that comes up in the first position in Swedish, which makes the verb end up in the second position, whereas it will not do that in English. So that is why Swedish is a V2 language. So I just also want to say that there are more examples, and like I mentioned before, you also have adverbials of place. So learn how to recognize those as well. I'm not gonna talk about that today in this video, but any adverbial referring to a place, the same thing would happen. So if I were to say, I Tyskland brukade jag spela fotboll. In Germany, I used to play soccer. I rummet finns min katt. In the room, you can find my cat. I Solna tycker jag om att äta godis. In Solna, I like to eat candy. In the garage, you can find many things. I mitt garage kan du hitta många saker. So look for locations or places and look for anything referring to time, and you will be able to tell when inversion is going on or not. That would be my advice. Another tip that will help you is that you can think of adverbs or adverbials in general as non-essential information. So what I mean by that is that you can generally hold your finger over a sentence with an adverb or an adverbial, and the sentence would still be correct. And if it is, well, then you know it's an adverbial. So if I say, igår köpte jag en katt. Yesterday I bought a cat. If I remove igår, yesterday, it would still be I bought a cat. The sentence would still be grammatically correct. So that is usually how you know that something is an adverb or an adverbial. So I hope this video was useful to you, because it took me a long time. I don't know if I'm gonna continue with this or not. It depends really on if there's an interest for it. So it's gonna take a lot of likes and comments for me to keep doing that, because I'm more interested in doing videos about learning Spanish or Portuguese or Italian. But if you can show me that this is something that would be useful for you, I can continue doing this. So hit the like button, subscribe, and have a good day.